Hey now, Brawlers, it's time for another Board Game Brawl review with Nick Minahan, sponsored by BoardGameBliss.com. Hey now, today we're going to take a look at Dark Tales from DV Giochi. I know I'm always saying that incorrectly. I'm very, very sorry. This is a light card game with a dark fairy tale theme. There's a lot of the different fairy tale tropes. I think amongst all the different cards I've seen, there's like the dragon, and there's one that looks like Maleficent from Sleeping Beauty, and there's one that looks like the Wicked Witch from the Wizards of Oz. Lots of different things like that, but obviously they're in a much darker and more twisted looking versions, not the sort of cartoony versions you might have grown up with. But despite that theme, which is sort of present, this is just a very light card game about earning points by playing down different cards and trying to get different items and having one card work off of another card, or potentially even a card that another player has. Let's just go ahead and take a brief look at how the game is played, then we're going to come back and let you know what I think. I'm going to give you a quick rundown of Dark Tales. This is a competitive game for 2 to 4 players. Both of the games have the most victory points at the end of the game. And by the way, these are all the victory points. There's a ton of little chips, and they're actually single-sided. The other side is just some generic gem or something, which means you should be keeping the points secret during the course of the game. Now, the game is going to end when the deck runs out, but not right away. When the deck runs out, then everyone keeps taking turns until one player runs out of cards at the start of their turn. If one player has no cards in their hand, then the game immediately ends. That player doesn't even get to take a turn. Every player is going to start with 3 cards from the main deck. You shuffle up all the main cards in the game and then make a deck out of them. Deal 3 to each player. Although you do remove the night card at the start of the game. The night card simply says, it is night. Discard all day cards from play. But that one will start automatically. Also, as part of the setup, well, first off, you also have all these little item tokens over here. You have swords, magic wands, armor tokens, and gold coins. But you're going to have 2 setting cards in the game as well. The setting cards, you have a setting A card and you have a setting B card. I'm just showing you what an A and a B look like. The A card is all about telling you what these tokens, what these items do in this particular game. And there's multiple A cards and multiple B cards. The B card that you choose, you can do it deterministically, you can do it randomly, however you want to do it. The B card is going to tell you end game point conditions. So, if we go ahead and take a look at one of these. Oh, and also I should mention at the bottom of each of these cards, there's a little bit of story blurb to try in vain to put theme into the game. So this one is the Sorcerers at Dusk, and I'm not even going to read it. It's something about Black Dawn, Sorcerer, people, blah, blah, blah. What this says is that during the course of the game, how magic wands work in this setting of the game, and it will change depending on which card you use, is you discard a magic wand to play an extra card this turn. Or you can discard a sword and any one villain in play to take a gold coin from the supply and take a victory point. Or, if you have a monster in play, you can discard 1 armor or force each player to... I'm sorry, this text is really small. You can discard 1 armor to force each player to either discard 1 card or 1 victory point and take all of these discarded victory points. So that's just an example of what the setting may do to their tokens. Then you have the end game victory point cards, which in this case says that you can score 3 victory points for each sword plus villain or each sword plus male pair that you hold. Also, you rank the players according to the sum of their cards in hand and gold coins. The first player scores 10 victory points, the second 5, and so on. This is the Iron Army card. So these will randomly determine essentially the victory conditions and the game conditions, but all in all, it all adds up to the victory conditions. Now, the actual gameplay is very simple. You have 3 things that you do on your turn in this exact order. First, mandatory, you must draw a card from the top of the deck. Remember, you start with 3, then you can draw another one. Then, optionally, for your second action on your turn, you can use one of the item tokens. Remember that those are going to change and what they can do during the course of the game, depending on the setting card. But you may optionally use one that you took on a previous turn. The third thing that you must do on your turn is play a card, and this is mandatory even if it doesn't necessarily help you, which can be the case with some of these cards. You're going to take one of your cards from hand and you're going to play it, and multiple things might happen. Let's go ahead and take a look at one of these cards. So we'll take a look at this Night Creature card since that's the one I happen to randomly draw. A lot of things going on here. First off, up in the top corner, that's victory points. So anytime that, in this case, it's a question mark because the victory points are dependent upon some things, but sometimes, most of the time, it's just a static number. So as soon as you play the card, you get that many victory points. The icons here are just an iconic reminder of what the text of the card is. Down here at the bottom, you'll have symbols to tell you which kind of card it is. So this is one of the villain cards. This one, the hourglass says it's a continuous effect. So as long as you've got the Night Creature in play, you score 2 victory points at the end of your turn. And down here at the bottom, it'll also remind you exactly what's going to happen with this card. So I believe in this case, this is specifically telling you this goes in front of you. Other cards get played into the common area, like the Night card that we start off with. So let's say that I play the Night Creature card. I will score a continuing amount of points on each of my turns. But let's take a look at some of the other cards that you might play during the game and the different types of cards. Anytime that you see the Lightning Bolt, which is also on the Night card, it's an event. So this is the Day event. You get 3 points, and you cancel out the Night card. It becomes Day instead of Night in the common area. Princess gets you 2 points. She's a female. That's what that symbol means. You can take 1 male in play and add it to your hand. Then you have the Young Hero. He gets you 2 points. He's a male. You take 1 armor and 1 sword from the supply. You take those tokens. Now, a lot of cards have sort of much more interesting effects, like the Gypsy lets you look at... all players have to show their hands. You score a victory point, plus a victory point for each revealed place, and then you get to draw a card for each revealed Gypsy. The Fairy gets you 2 points, and you can take a magic wand or sword from the supply. The Ogre lets you take a place and a female in play and add them to your hand. And I'll always give you points to some degree or another. The Dragon, you can discard a place and a male in play to score 2 victory points for each card discarded. The Dark Lord, score 2 victory points for each villain in play and discard a place in play. The Secret Helper, this one is you can look at the top 2 cards of the deck, add one to your hand, and remove the other one from play face down. You may play an additional card. Enchantment is an event. You can take 1 card, item of your choice from the supply, armor, magic wand, gold coin, or sword. You have a couple of the King's cards, the King's Nonsense and the King's Wisdom. The King's Nonsense says that you draw a card. It's an event card. If it's day, you score a victory point for each place in play. And if it's night, you score 2 victory points for each place in play. The King's Wisdom, similar. Draw a card. If it's day, you score 2 victory points. If it's night, you score 1 victory point. And then here's an example of a place card. I don't think I've shown one yet. It has this symbol, the Enchanted Woods. You draw a card. If it's day, all players draw a card. If it's night, all players discard a card. So, just to run through that again, you are going to draw a card at the start of your turn. Optionally use one of the magic items to get the effect on one of these cards. You're going to play a card from your hand. Then it's going to go to the next player. And you're going to keep doing this, scoring points, taking these little victory point chips here and keeping them face down so that the other players can't see them. You get the idea. And then when the deck runs out, whoever runs out of cards from their hand first is going to end the game immediately. Then you're going to look at the end game conditions of the B card to get different sets of items, which will get you points and so on. Whatever conditions are there, add up all the points you've earned during the course of the game plus the points you get from that card. Whoever has the most points is the winner. That's Dark Tales. It's not any more complicated than that. Let's go ahead and get to my final thoughts. All right, well, first things first, the game looks amazing. This is fantastic artwork, and I actually feel like I'm sounding like a broken record at this point because so many games I've played lately have just have stellar artwork, and I hope that this is a permanent trend. People are starting to realize, publishers and designers are starting to realize that their games need to look good, and more games are starting to be held up to a higher standard for that, and that's great news. And Dark Tales especially, it's like American style. I don't want to say it's gritty, but it's definitely American comic book style artwork that is just solid. I'm not into fairy tale characters much at all, but I love seeing them in this way. They just look great. And the thing is, though, talking about that theme for a minute, it's really pasted on. Like, really, I don't think they really intended it to be a hugely thematic game. They do make some efforts. There's things like, depending on your setting card is going to change a lot, but let's say if it's just discard a sword and get to fight a villain and you get victory points. Yay, fighting a villain. But you don't really feel like that. It's just this token lets you take this card, throw it away, and you get some points. That's the thing about this game. It's just point collection. It's not even really set collection. It is in some ways because certain cards will work off each other and you want to have certain cards interacting with each other. And also depending on I think the B card, which it signifies what your end game condition is going to be for victory points. Like if you have a wand and some coins, that's going to get you a bunch of points. So there's set collection there, but for the most part, it's just play a card, hope it interacts well with something else, and just gather heaps and heaps of points. And I don't know why getting a wand and some coins is very thematic. The little blurbs of text at the bottom of the setting cards try their best to get some storyline into it. It doesn't really work out that well, but I don't really want to hold it against them too much because I don't think the point of this was to make this a very deep and enthralling storyline. Rather, it's just meant to be a very light family card game, family weight card game that is very, very fast. I think the box says 30 minutes. I would say less, actually, depending on how many players you're playing with and if everyone's familiar with the game. And if you're not familiar with the game, you'll know how to play in 5 minutes. It's that simple. It's what you can do on your turn is very simple, almost to a fault. And it's very, very luck-driven. That is probably my number one complaint about the game, is that you can just get a hand of garbage. You can just get cards that are just like, play this, look at the top 2 cards, draw one of the cards, which is great, but then that card is just nothing anyway. So you've just not really done much of anything on your turn. And if you just get some bad turns, other players can just swoop ahead of you. I mean, really, really far. It is not hard to fall behind in this game. And that is definitely an issue. Do I think it's a crippling issue? No. I actually had fun with this game. But I had fun because I took it in the spirit in which it was meant. Fast, very beautiful looking game that there's something about just collecting heaps of points and then getting some combos off. Like, okay, I played this card, whatever it might be. I'm forgetting which card is in which set because I have an expansion as well, but playing like a Prince card, then being able to grab this item and using this item to kill those witches, and if I kill enough of them, I kill a bunch all at once and I get a bunch of points, or if I play the gypsy at the right time early in the game and a bunch of people reveal the gypsy, and then boom, I'm flush with points and I'm flush with cards and everything is fantastic. Or when the gypsy see land cards, they get a lot of points. So that feeling is really, really cool, and I like that, and because it's so fast, even if you are kind of falling behind, it's not that big of a deal. I do wish it was a little more balanced. I wish there was more development given towards that, and just being able to do more things on your turn so you don't feel like you're just stuck with crap cards on certain turns. But still, I like it. I like the way it looks, themeless or not. It looks beautiful, and it's just a solid, fun game. That is Dark Tales from DVGOchi? Close enough.
Thanks for watching. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Patreon. And make sure to check out our sponsor, Board Game Bliss, where you can find an amazing selection of games from around the world. BoardGameBliss.com. Thanks for your support.